Hello and welcome to the London part of the show. I'm Ellie Price. Coming up later, as the BBC drama series continues to captivate television audiences, we look behind the headlines at the real problem of global money laundering in the capital. Joining me for the duration of the show, the Labour MP for Ealing Central and Acton, Rupa, who is the co-chair of the all-party parliamentary group on anti-corruption, and Bob Neal, Conservative MP for Bromley and Chislehurst, who chairs the Justice Select Committee. Welcome to you both. Now, according to a highly critical report published this week, passengers on Southern, Thameslink and Great Northern services have suffered the worst rail disruption in the UK, with Londoners and London commuters bearing the brunt. The National Audit Office said the UK's largest rail franchise, GTR, has not provided value for money. Jerry Thomas has more.
The report found that the services had been the worst on the network since Govia Thameslink took over the routes, and at worst only 2/3 of trains arrived on time. 60% of delays on the GTR network were due to industrial action or lack of crew, and nearly 40% of delays were down to poor infrastructure. The Department for Transport is being blamed for not ensuring that adequate staffing were available before awarding the franchise. The Transport Secretary, Chris Grayling, responded to the criticism in the House of Commons.
What I do apologise for is that we were not able to avoid the extraordinarily ill-judged actions by the trade unions who caused massive trouble for passengers.
The report went on to say that the government should learn lessons from the case when it sets up other rail franchises in the future.
Lessons for franchises in the future. I rather think commuters would probably want action now. Bob Neal, a sort of apology there from the Transport Secretary, but the buck passes the unions. What do you think's going on, and shouldn't he and the government take a bit more responsibility?
Well, Chris was perfectly right to make the point about the behaviour of the unions, which I think was absolutely unacceptable in that case. But there are other problems too, and there is an issue, I think, with the way those franchises were drawn up to begin with. And the government does have an opportunity now to change the makeup of those franchises. I've said the same thing about South Eastern, my own franchise, Elliot, where I think it's too big. And clearly this one, where it's an enormous geographic franchise, doesn't make any sense at all. So as well as doing what the government is doing, I think they should revise the geographic spread of the franchises to make them smaller, because I don't think you can just get a grip on something that size. And the other thing I suggest we could do is split off the suburban elements of the franchise and integrate those more closely with TfL. Those would be things that you could sensibly do.
OK, Rupa, blame for the unions.
I mean, I think it's a cheap shot to blame the unions. I actually agree with Bob, though, that this franchise is too unwieldy. I mean, it's a Great Northern, Southern, Thameslink, bits of Gatwick Express are part of it. For one company, it is too big. I think it's 25% of all journeys covered by this franchise. They've said when it comes up again in 2021, they'll break it up. But I think rather than the unions, it's the way that we run our railways. I think it's time to put train and track together. And I'd say put the whole lot in public ownership, because it's just too unwieldy for one person. As Bob says, it covers from Peterborough down to Portsmouth. I think it's just, you know,
because
out of
the problem is we feel like there's a blame game going on here, isn't there? The government blames the unions blame the train companies, etc. We need something done, and we need something soon. And the government's already suggested it's not going back to TfL. So what can be done?
Well, what I think you can do, I think it's a mistake that they're not putting it back with TfL, but what they have agreed to do is try and ensure much closer working, operational working between TfL and whoever gets a new franchise in these cases. I still think you could break up the franchises one way or the other. I think the other thing, putting train and track together, I agree with Rupa on that, and that could be done within the context of new franchise. I don't agree with bringing it back into public ownership. I commuted up when it was British Rail. I've been a London commuter for nearly 40 years, Ellie, and the myth that there was a good British Rail is exactly that. It was terrible. It was absolutely awful.
I mean, we don't have to go to the 70s model. You could do a European-style public ownership.
Where I do think the reason I actually favour privatisation, Rupa, is that you ought then to, if the company fails, you should take the franchise off them.
Very quick word from Rupa, and then we'll move on.
And also, Govia is a French company. They took over from Abellio, which is a Dutch company. They've sold off the depots at Willesden and Ilford to the Canadians. I mean, it just seems a bit weird that all these other foreign franchises can bid in, apart from our own government.
I think we're going to have to leave it there. We will watch the story, but plenty of options by the sound of it.